What is the secret to the captivating tale of a quiet English literature professor and his small life at a modest university in Missouri? The secret lies simply in Stoner himself. William Stoner isn't the kind of hero we're used to or the one that's easy to market. He's not the bravest nor the best at his job. He's not the most successful nor the happiest, yet it's hard to imagine living a life more courageously, fully and happily than Stoner. Stoner is an extraordinary book about a seemingly ordinary man, offering readers the chance to see reflections of their own lives within its pages. Stoner is a melancholic novel, but not depressing, uneventful, but never dull. It's a novel that fills you with unease, yet doesn't drive you away. Williams, in his timeless text, confronts us with the relativity of happiness. He reflects on the illogical and irrational nature of the human mind. Reflecting on those who make his life difficult, Stoner understands that what drives them to destruction, vengeance, and even hatred also destroys them. Instead of retaliating in kind, Stoner genuinely pities them. He willingly and without complaint pays a certain price in exchange for small pieces of happiness, periods of satisfaction, and unforgettable love. Stoner is a great novel in many ways, perhaps most in how it awakens a full spectrum of emotions in the reader and ultimately breaks your heart. It's hard to imagine even one reader who won't find a piece of themselves in the complex tangle of contradictory traits that define Stoner. A beautiful, sad, and immensely convincing story about a human life? This, to me, is a perfect novel, told with such mastery and written so beautifully that it takes your breath away. If you haven't read this book yet, I strongly encourage you to do so. Rest assured, knowing the plot will not lessen its impact. In fact, it will enhance it. With the ending revealed on the first page, you can continue watching this video without hesitation. Whether you've already experienced this masterpiece or are about to, I hope you enjoy this analysis and heartfelt tribute. Stoner's family works hard but remains poor. Despite their hardships, the Stoners find unity in their shared labor. Starting at the age of 6, Stoner is introduced to the workforce. His responsibilities include milking the bony cow, feeding the pig, and gathering chicken eggs. He also attends school, which he considers another chore, somewhat less exhausting than those around the farm. As he grows older, his chores increase, yet his stoic attitude remains unchanged. The novel depicts the Stoner's life as one of cheerless manual labor. The toil breaks their wills and numbs their intelligence. This bleak view of life is elaborated further in the following passage. At 30, his father looked 50, stooped by labor. He gazed without hope at the arid patch of land that sustained the family from one year to the next. His mother regarded her life patiently, as if it were a long moment that she had to endure. Her eyes were pale and blurred, and the tiny wrinkles around them were enhanced by thin graying hair worn straight over her head and caught in a bun at the back. This passage describes the profound impact of financial struggle on the family. The father looks 20 years older than his actual age, and his back begins to hunch. He sees life with a hopeless attitude born from an acute awareness of their arduous living conditions. The mother's pale and blurred eyes reflect her husband's despair. Life is perceived as a void and an endless struggle. As Stoner ages, he begins to mirror his father's physical decay. His face becomes haggard as he loses weight, and the stoop of his shoulders increases. Poverty and misery shape the Stoner's metaphysical experience. However, they remain indifferent to it, not viewing their situation as a thought-provoking experience that fosters metaphysical insights. The Stoners never address this awareness in any dialogue throughout the novel. Instead, acceptance and endurance are seen as prerequisites for sustaining life. Throughout his life, Stoner maintains this indifferent attitude. Existentialists are often preoccupied with the question of finding the meaning of life. Famous existentialist Albert Camus declares that the ontological pursuit, the striving and confidence to explain and attain meaning in life, is entirely useless. Camus acknowledges that humans always have this desire for unity, this longing to solve, this need for clarity and cohesion, which may be provided by meaning. However, he is determined not to fall for such traps and accepts that life is simply incomprehensible instead. This view is echoed in Stoner. He had dreamed of a kind of integrity, a kind of purity that was entire. He had found compromise and the assaulting diversion of triviality. He has conceived wisdom, and at the end of the long years he had found ignorance. So Stoner dreams of unity and integrity, but does not find them. Instead, he encounters compromise and diversion, realizing that meaning is impossible to attain. Both Stoner and Camus agree that there is no inherent meaning in life, and therefore searching for it is essentially useless. Consequently, Stoner returns to his family's ethic, the ethic of indifference. Stoner's entire life, up until the age of 23, is condensed into a single chapter. Despite this brevity, it provides a valuable character description of Stoner necessary for establishing a point of reference from which the reader can evaluate him. As a result, the changes throughout Stoner's life become clearly visible throughout the novel. The most significant changes occur early in the book, marked by Stoner's sudden interest and love for English literature. This unexpected passion leads to a decisive break from his old life on the farm. Stoner encounters Sonnet 73 in a routine English literature class. John Williams's choice to mention Sonnet 73 is intriguing as the poem has an existential tone. It discusses mortality, the meaninglessness of existence, and an optimism that, despite everything, life can still gain a certain sense of purpose simply through the intensity and truthfulness of love towards the things that most deserve to be loved. The poem advocates for a passion that unifies the cosmic forces of good. The introduction of the poetry marks an awakening in Stoner's mind. The love of literature, a language of the mystery of the mind and heart, begins to attract Stoner, and he starts building confidence as he finds in the blackest and coldest print the love which he had hidden. Stoner's confrontation with the Shakespearean sonnet leaves him feeling reborn, and the reader is able to perceive that something indefinable changes within him. He is, however, too shocked to realize what such a sudden internal change means. This is exemplified by the following excerpt, which shows Stoner's bafflement when confronted with Shakespeare. William Stoner realized that for several moments he had been holding his breath. He expelled it gently, becoming acutely aware of his clothing moving upon his body as his breath left his lungs. Stoner noticed his fingers unclenching their hard grip on his desk. He turned his hands under his gaze, marveling at their brownness and the intricate way the nails fit into the blunt finger ends. He thought he could feel the blood flowing invisibly through the tiny veins and arteries, throbbing delicately and precariously from his fingertips through his body. Stoner looks at his hands as if seeing them for the first time, feeling a sense of alienation as if they belonged to someone else. Faced with the indefinable, Stoner becomes aware of his personal existence. He thought he could feel the blood flowing. This moment is the impetus for Stoner's awakening, where the reader recognizes a moment of self-awareness. We observe Stoner's personal changes through his observations, but the true and definite reason for his sudden change in study is omitted. The decision and reasoning behind it cannot be adequately described, as they stem from the most personal thought processes and ideas. Stoner's sudden attraction to literature is depicted as an epiphany of knowing something through words that could not be put in words. It was a knowledge of which he could not speak, but one which changed him. Once he had it, so that no one could mistake its presence. Readers get the impression that Stoner is aware of the reasons behind his actions, yet he's simply unable to articulate them coherently. This is clearly evident through the ambiguous description in the novel. Stoner's psyche is never fully exposed. Even in fiction, some aspects of character and personality remain inscrutable, as is the case in real life. The coming-of-age phase evolves and is completed once Stoner explains to his parents that he will not only not be returning to the farm, but rather will remain on campus to obtain his master's and doctoral degree. This break from parental authority and support is essential for Stoner's construction of his own personal identity. Indeed, he recognizes it as such. He felt his inadequacy to the goal he had so recklessly chosen and felt the attraction of the world he had abandoned. He grieved for his own loss and for that of his parents, and even in his grief felt himself being drawn away from them. The moment he chose to live the life of a scholar marked the first step away from who he was before. Coming to terms with this decision and relating it to his parents seems to be a heavy burden on Stoner, who tried to explain to his father what he intended to do, tried to evoke in him his own sense of significance and purpose. He listened to his words fall as if from the mouth of another and watched his father's face, which received those words as a stone receives the repeated blows of a fist. Even when faced with his parents, their pain and distress when they learn of his decision, Stoner perseveres because he senses the importance that the choice will have on the remainder of his life. Indeed, Stoner's life at the university ultimately defines him. It is in its corners and hallways that he discovers himself and his true vocation. The simple fact that he belongs there dawns upon him after a conversation with Archer Sloane, his literature professor, who points out what Stoner was not able to realize, that he will be a teacher. "But don't you know, Mr. Stoner?" Sloane asked. "Don't you understand about yourself yet? You're going to be a teacher." When he leaves the meeting, Stoner sees and feels the university in a different way. He brushed against the polished wooden walls in the corridor, and he thought he could feel the warmth and age of the wood. He went slowly down the stairs and wondered at the veined cold marble that seemed to slip a little beneath his feet. Stoner's veined hands from the previous excerpt are now compared to the veined marble stairs of the university. For Stoner, the university comes to life when he discovers its relevance to his personal existence, because for the first time in his life, passion emerges. Stoner comes from a social group constantly occupied with financial struggles, shaping his stoical attitude. Upon discovering education, he experiences an epiphany that transforms his worldview. Transitioning from a farming environment to the university, Stoner finally gains financial stability as a university instructor. As his perspective broadens, he learns the wisdom of pursuing a passion. The following passage highlights the way that passion is depicted in Stoner. In his youth, he had given it freely, without thought. He had given it to the knowledge that had been revealed to him, how many years ago, by Archer Sloane. He had given it to Edith in those foolish days of his courtship and marriage, and he had given it to Catherine, as if it had never been given before. He had, in odd ways, given it to every moment of his life, and had perhaps given it most fully when he was unaware of his giving. It was a passion neither of the mind nor of the flesh. Rather, it was a force that comprehended them both, as if they were but the matter of love, its specific substance. To a woman or to a poem, it said simply, "Look, I am alive." In Stoner, passion is viewed as an act of love. One of Stoner's passions is literature, which makes him a dedicated scholar. His pursuit of literary studies leads to a job as a university instructor where he discovers a passion for teaching. Stoner commits himself to his job, experiencing a happy exhaustion which he hoped never would end. He dedicates his energy to his work and hoped that he was at last defined by what he did. Stoner falls in love and has an affair with his student, Catherine Driscoll. Their shared passion for literature deepens their love. Stoner's affair is not deplorable because he follows his passion, and Stoner's passion transcends the mind and flesh, free from moral judgment. It creates a harmony that unifies them and solidifies Stoner's existing, affirming that he is simply alive. Stoner leads a life of passion. However, thoughts of failure plague him before he dies. He dispassionately and reasonably contemplates the failure that his life must appear to be. This contemplation should not be seen as an affirmation that Stoner has led a life of failure, but rather as a reflection of the integrity of his character. He had wanted friendship and the closeness of friendship that might hold him in the race of mankind. He had two friends, one of whom had died senselessly before he was known, the other of whom had now withdrawn so distantly into the ranks of the living that he had wanted the singleness and the still connective passion of marriage. He had had that too, and he had not known what to do with it, and it had died. He had wanted love, and he had had love, and had relinquished it, had let it go into the chaos of potentiality. Catherine, he thought, Catherine. And he had wanted to be a teacher, and he had become one. And what else, he thought, what else? The passage signifies valuable matters for Stoner. He wants friendship, a good marriage, love, and a respectable career. Despite the difficulties he faces in each matter, he achieves them. He had had that, and he had become one. Before Stoner dies, he finds closure. He answers his doubts by saying that his failures hardly matter to him anymore. In fact, such thoughts are unworthy of what his life had been. Stoner holds a book that he authors. In that book, he finds a piece of himself. It does not matter for Stoner that the book serves no use and that it is forgotten because it has served its purpose for Stoner. It solidifies his existence. It says that he simply is alive. Stoner loves every moment of his life, and this wisdom leads him to a successful existence. He is a passionate scholar, teacher, lover, father, and friend. Stoner is also a decent human being with vices that make his character more relatable. Certain aspects of Stoner's life may be seen as failures. The author even noted that Stoner endures and accepts too much but does not fight enough. However, these vices highlight his virtues. These virtues enable him to endure life's difficulties. In the final segments of the novel, Stoner finds a sense of fulfillment. Though his life may appear to be a failure, it is essential to remember that Stoner's life is well lived. As John Williams said in a 1966 interview, "And though I may seem to take something away from Stoner in the end at his death, I don't really. I give him more than he has had before, and more than any of us ever gain, his own identity." In the final moments of his life, Stoner gazes out the window of his sickbed on a summer afternoon, and then a sense of his own identity came upon him with a sudden force, and he felt the power of it. He was himself, and he knew what he had been. Williams gives Stoner the gift of self-knowledge. As his hero gently tells Catherine when their love affair must end, "We have come out of this, at least with ourselves. We know that we are what we are." We have already established that Stoner has a strong existentialist undertone. In Williams's novels, there are messengers who communicate the essence of existentialist philosophy to the protagonists. Even more important is the timing of their revelation. In Stoner, it is Dave Masters, one of Stoner's two friends who is later killed in the war, who voices these beliefs. You'd think there's something here, something to find. Well, in the world you'd learn soon enough. You too are cut out for failure. The here in this excerpt refers to the University of Missouri, but the campus resembles the outside world and is vulnerable to its threats. Attempting to find any existential meaning in the campus is as futile as seeking it in the outside world. In Stoner, however, Masters' conclusion is a catalyst. We understand the gravity of what he said, but somehow are still not too concerned since the novel could still work towards a resolution. The numerous setbacks Stoner encounters throughout the rest of his life diminish that hope substantially, and when at the end of the novel Stoner is bedridden as a result of his cancer, we fear that the resolution will remain absent. It is only moments before he dies, when he is drugged on painkillers, that Stoner comes to the most valuable conclusion about his existence. His reasoning starts drearily. Dispassionately, reasonably, he contemplated the failure his life must appear to be. He summarizes the things he had wanted in life: friendship, a good marriage, love, and being a good teacher. He obtained every single one of them, or at least came close, yet was never able to hold on to all. He lost friends, saw his marriage crumble, and when he found unconditional love, it was taken from him by outsiders. When a second voice arises in his head, however, he asks, "What did you expect?" The question is repeated 3 times, and each time it comes up, it lifts him further out of his depressed state. Time blurs together, and the reader is not aware of the span between each repetition. After the second time, he feels something heavy pressing upon his eyelids, which is revealed to be daylight. As if it symbolizes a new dawn, Stoner seems to regain some of his strength, and he becomes aware of nature surrounding him. He appears to blend with nature. He heard the rasping of his breath and felt the sweetness of the summer gather in his lungs. Stoner realizes that death is upon him, as he felt also a shifting somewhere deep inside him, a shifting that stopped something and fixed his head so that it would not move. Then it passed, and he thought, so this is what it is like. He recognizes what is awaiting him, and he seems to approach it with a steady calm. The third time the question is asked, a conclusion is reached. Stoner regrets his earlier statement where he dimly recalled that he had been thinking of failure as if it mattered. It seemed to him now that such thoughts were mean, unworthy of what his life had been. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, a resolution is reached. There was a softness around him, and a languor crept upon his limbs. A sense of his own identity came upon him with a sudden force, and he felt the power of it. He was himself, and he knew what he had been. We do not learn what is meant by he was himself. No true definition or clarification is provided because none is possible. It is a subjective understanding, one that cannot be communicated to others. Even though the reader has the feeling that they know and understand the essence of Stoner at the end, there's always that feeling of mystery that shrouds another person's personality, something impenetrable no matter how familiar you're with someone. It is through his subjectivity, when he ceases to wonder what others might think, that Stoner discovers his true sense of self. In this sudden moment of self-awareness, he manages to locate the one book he wrote in his academic career. In another book Williams wrote, Butcher's Crossing, there is a quote, "And then maybe when you're ready to die, it comes to you that there's nothing but yourself and what you could have done." For anyone, this is a sad conclusion to life. Stoner, on the other hand, embraces death with a feeling of contentment. He accepts his identity and takes pride in what he was able to achieve. He diminishes the academic relevance of his work, but he knew a small part of him that he could not deny was there and would be there, and he seems to be at ease with who he was. Some editions of Stoner contain an excerpt from an interview with Williams himself in which he states that the important thing in the novel to me is Stoner's sense of a job. Teaching to him is a job in the good and honorable sense of the word. His job gave him a particular kind of identity and made him what he was. It's the love of the thing that's essential, and if you love something, you're going to understand it. Stoner feels a deep love towards his field of study, and in it he can lose himself and forget the problems brought upon him from the outside world, whether it is his wife or a co-worker. It is his love for literature which defines him as a human being and adds meaning to his life when he's faced with the inevitability of his own death. Stoner, however, shows that when you reach this stage, you are not guaranteed a life without problems and distress. Stoner is subjected to acts of cruelty by a number of people, all of whom play an important role in his life. This, however, is all forgotten in the culmination of the novel. Eventually, Stoner is content and at ease with his life because he had a great love which provided him with a job and a set of principles to live by. This love gave his life authenticity because the choice to study literature was his and was ultimately made out of free will. No human can live authentically until they decide what kind of person they're meant to be. Stoner's personality is shaped according to the principles of his love, and the materialization of this love, the physical proof of his authenticity, is his own book which he holds in his hands as his last breath leaves him. Now, we cannot analyze Stoner without discussing and talking about Edith. The main conflict in the novel is the marriage. The marital conflict, among other things, provides interesting insights into the interaction between two people from different social classes. Edith comes from an upper-class family as suggested by this passage. Edith's parents, Mr. and Mrs. Bostwick, are concerned about her well-being if she marries Stoner, a tenured professor of English literature. Mr. Bostwick describes the privileges he is able to provide for his daughter. He gives her a good house and servants, which affords her leisure. Edith is an only child with no knowledge of the necessity of living because she had never been alone to care for her own self one day of her life. But this passage is an excerpt of Edith's dialogue with Stoner during their courtship. The Bostwicks provide Edith with quality schooling. She gains an easy access to the private schools despite her young age because her father is one of the members of the school committee. These privileges, however, have turned Edith into a person with the stern insistence of preserving her comfort. John Williams writes in acknowledgement that Edith's raising is typical of that of most girls of her time and circumstance. Edith is raised to praise protection, referring to financial security as an almost sacred obligation. The way the Bostwicks interact is interesting when compared to the Stoners. As explained earlier, the relationship between the Stoners is that of cooperation irrespective of gender, while the division of roles in the Bostwicks household is clearer. Mr. Bostwick works and provides, while Mrs. Bostwick stays in the house and receives. The gender relation is that of financial dependency. From marriage, Mrs. Bostwick expects some betterment of her financial circumstances, but the betterment had never been very precisely specified. Accustomed to expecting more, Mrs. Bostwick displays dissatisfaction so habitual within her that it was part of her person. The dissatisfaction grows over time that it becomes so general and pervasive that no specific remedy may assuage them. Stoner's wife Edith, unlike the protagonist himself, never succeeds in discovering the aspects in life that define her. She is a restless soul, always transforming herself, and is ultimately never able to find an aspect of life that defines and establishes herself as a unique individual. She forgoes her Europe trip under the illusion that she might find her vocation in marriage, but it is almost as if she is aware of her ever-changing personality. "I'll try to be a good wife to you, William," she said. "I'll try." She attempts to be a housewife but grows tired of the routine quickly. She thinks that becoming a mother will bring solace, but when she finally gives birth, she distances herself from the child and falls into a depression. Later, when her father dies, she erases every trace of him, revealing a potential troubled relationship. She undergoes a physical metamorphosis and surrounds herself with a new social group. She wishes to present herself as an independent woman, free of any male oppression, and radically different from the woman she was before. She wanted, she said, a change in herself. She had too long been what she was. She spoke of her childhood, of her marriage. She fixed an image that she wished to fulfill. However, a recurring pattern emerges, and Edith is once again dissatisfied and quickly loses interest. The only constant in Edith's life is her tendency to fall ill regularly without explanation. Despite the fact that Edith is a tragic figure, her acts of cruelty towards Stoner prevent the reader from sympathizing with her character. Her callousness towards Stoner is undoubtedly caused by jealousy. She envies Stoner's unwavering interest and devotion to his field of study. She's able to perceive that Stoner's love for teaching and literature compels him. He is defined by his passion, whereas she continuously alters her identity, struggling to find something authentic. Arguably, her life is as tragic as Stoner's. She conforms to what society sets forth as desirable, being a desirable daughter, wife, and a mother, hoping it will bring her peace of mind, but it does the exact opposite. Edith has been raised in an emotional vacuum, taught only useless ornamental skills, sheltered as wholly as possible from reality. So when her father dies and the paternal authority disappears, Edith decides to transform herself and erase every trace of her former self, but by then it is already too late. Edith's character demonstrates what an inauthentic existence can do to a person. Transforming one's personality time and time again brings doubt over oneself, and this makes it extremely difficult to construct a valuable identity. Since I started reading fiction, I have never encountered a more powerful novel and not a syllable of it sentimental. Williams performs this feat by attending carefully to the soul of William Stoner and the tragic circumstances of his life. From the opening chapter, you are aware that the book will chronicle the life of a humble, sensitive man you will never forget, and for whom you will mourn as you would for the dearest of friends. As Stoner comes to understand what his life has been and what it has meant, you will involuntarily weigh your own life. At the opening of the novel, we are told that Stoner never rose above the rank of assistant professor and that few students remembered him with any sharpness after they had taken his courses. The occasional student who hears his name in the years after he's gone is uninterested in who he was. His colleagues, who held him in no particular esteem when he was alive, rarely speak of him after his death. To the older ones, his name is a reminder of the end that awaits them all, and to the younger ones it is merely a sound that evokes no sense of the past and no identity with which they can associate themselves or their careers. Stoner's life and accomplishments are erased. But for the reader who comes to know him, he's a hero. He's a hero because against all odds he has overcome his parents' mute existence and against all obstacles nurtured a lifelong passion for matters of the mind and heart. He's a hero because he has prevailed in making himself into a superb teacher despite bored students, a repressive department chairman, and his own innate muteness. He's a hero because he endures with decency and patience an impossible wife which is set against him from the outset, and a daughter whose life turns tragic. Witnessing this job and marriage, the reader wants to scream into pages of the novel, and Stoner is destroyed, but he is not defeated. This novel is unspeakably sad, but it is also happy in the sense that against all the harm that comes his way, Stoner prevails in his integrity as a teacher, a scholar, a husband, and finally as a human being of noble dimensions. Stoner's name and accomplishments may be erased, but we who have known his life will be forever moved and inspired by it. If you found this analysis of John Williams' Stoner insightful, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel for more in-depth book analyses and literary discussions. Share your thoughts and favorite moments in the comments below. I love hearing from you as always, and if you haven't read it yet, consider picking up a copy. I hope I did this book justice, and happy reading.